Hello Year 11, we are back to our mock feedback and we are looking today at question 3. So to refresh your memory to start off with, I would like you to be thinking about what reasons you can remember for the collapse of the Weimar Republic in 1933. So pause here, have a think about that and then come back. So question number 3 asked you to study the two interpretations you were given and then to answer the question, do the interpretations support the view that the Great Depression led to the collapse of the Weimar Republic? And that was a 10-mark question. It also said that in your answer you should refer to how and why the interpretations may differ. You should use your own knowledge and understanding of the wider historical context over this issue to reach a well-supported judgment. So you get 4 marks in this for your knowledge and 6 marks for your use of the interpretations, that's AO4. So you should have provided very detailed understanding, so lots of specific knowledge, and then to get your 6 marks on AO4, it asks that you fully analyse and evaluate how and why the interpretations differ. You should demonstrate awareness of the wider historical debate. You should give analysis of the content, authorship and audience to provide a well-substantiated judgment about the extent of support provided for the view, set within the appropriate historical context. Now that's very wordy, so we're going to go through what that means in a moment. But before we do that, I just wanted to address some common mistakes that lots of you did. Universally, this question was not answered brilliantly. It is a really difficult question, so that's fully understandable, but we need to make sure that we're addressing those mistakes. So first of all, some of you wrote about the wrong time period. This does talk about the beginning of opposition to the Weimar Republic, so you could talk about some aspects of the beginning, but not all. Some of you also wrote about once Hitler was in power, which would not have been relevant either. Very, very few of you actually explained how or why the interpretations differed. So the question says this bit here, and like I said previously, you should always have a look at the information that comes along with the question, because that will give you instructions on what to make sure that you do. Some of you didn't include enough specific knowledge to get your 4 marks for that. You might have given me a little bit of detail, but not much. Another problem was that this is not asking for your opinion. This question does not ask whether or not you think it was the Great Depression that led to the collapse of the Weimar Republic. It's asking you to identify what these 2 historians think. So those of you that were talking about your opinion or what you think in this, it isn't relevant and you wouldn't have been given marks for that. And finally, so many of you were talking about reliability for this question. It does not ask you to talk about the reliability of the interpretations. Both of them are reliable, both of them are unreliable because they are opinions. They are based in fact, but it is our job to think about why these historians have these different opinions. So ultimately that's what the question is asking you. Whether or not these interpretations think that the Great Depression was the main reason, and why they might think whatever it is that they think. So I'm going to take you through how to answer this question step by step. We're going to start with breaking down what the interpretations are saying. Then we're going to look at what the historians think. And then you're going to have a go at writing it yourself. So to start out then, we have interpretation 1 and interpretation 2 in order to answer this question. So interpretation 1 says, from the beginning, opposition to the Republic came from left and right as well as the army. So here we can see that this is saying it's not the depression, it's other factors. So interpretation 1 disagrees with the view that the Great Depression led to the collapse. Okay? It then goes on to say that it is actually political opposition. And it supports that by talking about Nazi propaganda, and it highlights the role of the Nazis in particular. Interpretation 2 says that the Weimar's recovery was abruptly ended in 1930 under the impact of the Great Depression. So this suggests that it is the Great Depression. It states the Great Depression as its main focus. In fact, it even says here that it tipped the scales against the Weimar Republic and was the main reason for its eventual collapse. It then links the Nazi Party and the growth of the Nazi Party with the Depression. So essentially it's saying that the Nazi Party's growth was as a result of the Great Depression. And they use that to capitalize on the issues. So what we have here is interpretation 1 disagrees with this view, and interpretation 2 agrees with this view. So if you had talked about those things and stated what they said, you would have got a decent amount of marks just for interpreting what the historians are saying. However, the question is asking us to refer to how and why the interpretations differ, but also to use our own knowledge and understanding. So what we're going to look at now is this bit, our own knowledge and understanding. What you should have as an attachment is this here. It's got lots of different bits of knowledge that you could use to either support each interpretation. So what you need to do is to colour code which interpretation the piece of knowledge could support. So it could support interpretation 1 or interpretation 2. However, you need to be careful because there are some which you couldn't use for either interpretation. So what I would like you to do, please, is to pause here, colour code each one. So for example, this one says that the Weimar Republic faced opposition from the army from its very beginning. Many army leaders wanted a return of the Kaiser. That would support interpretation 1. So I would colour code that whichever colour I've got to do with interpretation 1. Pause here, complete your colour coding, and then come back. Okay, hopefully you've gone through your colour coding. So your sheet should look something like this now. These are all in green, the ones that support interpretation 1, and then in pink are the ones that support interpretation 2. Now you may have noticed that there are a couple, there are 3, which don't apply to either interpretation. None of this knowledge is incorrect, but it is not relevant. And some of you are using irrelevant information, so I've tried to include some of those ideas to show you that they wouldn't work. So for example, proportional representation, it could be argued to be a reason why the Weimar Republic collapsed, but it's not a reason that either of these interpretations are arguing. Hyperinflation in 1923 would not have been relevant because of the fact that that was overturned under Stresemann. And finally, the Reichstag fire was outside of the time period that we're looking at. So it's actually once the Republic has collapsed that the Reichstag fire becomes relevant. So we've got our knowledge now. We need to think about those interpretations. This second part which says how and why the interpretations differ. So we're going to revisit our interpretations. In interpretation 1, we have got a German historian, K.D. Bracher, and he served in the German army during the Second World War. Now, that's important because the fact that he's German and the fact that he served in the German army might have given him a first-hand perspective, and that would have shaped the kinds of things he thought about why the Weimar Republic collapsed. In addition to that, he's writing in his work called The Age of Ideologies. Now that is likely to be focused on a range of factors, lots of different ideologies. So focusing on the idea that we've got from the left and the right, different perspectives of thought. Interpretation 2, however, is a British historian. Now you could have talked about that, but there are other more relevant things that you can use to explain why Alan Bullock might have had this opinion. So for example, the fact that he's writing a biography of Hitler would focus more on the rise of the Nazis, so it wouldn't necessarily talk about the things before the Nazis came about, and therefore is more likely to set them in the context of the Great Depression. In addition to that, his work is published in 1952. Now that's really shortly after the war, and that may have had a role in why he has that opinion. Again, he will have just seen the impact of the Nazi Party and what they were doing, and it would have been very current in his mind. So those are all the things that suggest how and why those interpretations differ. What we're going to do now is have a go at rewriting your answer to question 3. So if you have your paper in front of you, you can see what you've written and you can see how to improve or change it. If not, just have a go at writing this answer, and your teacher can have a discussion with you about how much better that is. So you can use the sentence starters that you've got here to help you, but you don't have to. You should spend approximately 15 minutes writing your answer. So have a go at that, pause here, and then come back once you've finished. Hopefully you've written your answer now. What I would like you to do, please, is in your answer, I would like you to highlight or annotate where you see the following things. So you can either highlight in different colours and give each of these a colour, or you could just write on your answer where you've done these things. So you're looking for specific contextual knowledge, you're looking at where you've identified what the historian's argument is, you're looking at quotes from the interpretation, and you are looking for reasons why that historian has that interpretation. So if you could find those things in your answer. Okay, hopefully you have done your self-assessment, and now what we're going to do is to improve on that. So what I want you to do, please, is to read through the model answer that I've provided now, and then complete the following task. So I want you to be looking in the model answer for the same things that you looked for in your own answer, and that should help you to see kind of the structure of the model answer in comparison to yours and where it's doing the same sorts of things. Once you've done that, I would like you to answer in what ways is the question, the answer to the question good. So why is this model answer getting full marks? In what ways does it meet the mark scheme? In what ways is it doing these things? Finally, I want you to think about how you could improve your answer. So you don't have to make those improvements, you just have to tell me what you would do to improve yours in comparison. If you think yours is actually really similar, I want you to think about why yours also is of a similar standard and explain that. Once you finish this, that is the task completed today. You need to submit all of your work from today to your teacher, either through Satchel One or by email. And remember, if you have any questions, just give us a shout. Thank you.